All right, we're at 10:02, 10:01. I think we'll ease into this and press forward. So, hey, I appreciate everyone joining us on short notice. I know we just sent out a note about this. We kind of decided to do this on Monday in light of the current situation, and really excited that a number of you have chosen to join us. And we had our first Tolo Talk yesterday. We're going to try and keep up with the cadence here of 4 of these a week. We'll just do quick 20 to 30-minute sessions. We're talking through both sales strategies a little bit, and then we'll do a lot of product update information next week. Both this will be for veterans as well as for newer salespeople. So stay tuned for more about that. In this case, about 5-6 years ago, I coined a term. One of my sales guys, Brian Sondergeld, came to me, and we talked a lot about winning OEM business. And the definition of OEM, original equipment manufacturer, varies widely amongst all of the different customers that we work with, distributors, et cetera, salespeople. And so we were struggling with how do we characterize the type of customer we're looking for. We love end user business, and we do a lot of end user business. We love custom machine builders, and we do a lot of custom machine builder activity, especially with our configure to order products. But we really, really love people that buy the same thing over and over again and incorporate our product into their product. And that's what we're talking about here. So RPNOEM or RPNOEM, or there's a number of different ways, potato, that you could actually phrase this, but RPNOEM is what I've come up with, and it's kind of stuck. It's fun as I travel around the country, visiting with different distributors and their salespeople. Oftentimes that's the question or the recognition, you're the RPNOEM guy. So it doesn't roll off the tongue real easily, but the meaning is there. And we want to take care of end users, we want to take care of custom machine builders, but we really want to work with you to try and cultivate this repeat part number OEM business. And usually at this point, I go into a quick little video, but we're having some challenges here. So I'm going to stick with still photography, but I akin a RPNOEM to the Holy Grail. This is a shout out to an older movie. Some of you younger salespeople may or may not have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you, especially since we all of us have a little time on our hands. If you're sitting at home, you may want to have an adult beverage or two with you when you're watching it. It may improve the humor, but the Holy Grail, the pursuit, is what we're really working for. And I'd invite you to go on a quest with Tolomatic and our sales team to go find these repeat part number OEMs. By doing this type of activity, you can build a book of business that then builds on top of itself. If you go sell to the end user, if you go sell to the custom machine builder, that's great business. But next year, you have to go find those end users and those custom machine builders again, at least with our products you do. And so if you can actually start to build a base of OEM business, this RPNOEM business, now every year you can build on top of that, the sales grow, and the amount of effort to support that RPNOEM once it's in the fold is not that great. It's difficult for people to change. They don't want to change if it's working. So that sort of business is now more of a service business as opposed to a pursuit business. So what is an RPNOEM? We've talked a little bit about that, but again, someone that's going to buy the same part number repeatedly. So same stroke length, essentially, same feature set. We turn the crank on this product and send it out. So now there are a number of OEMs that we maybe don't want to sell to, these RPNOEMs, and I'd like to kind of talk through a little bit of this opportunity filter. So most of the challenge is many of these customers have a solution that is already incorporated in their product that they've already designed in. So what's a compelling reason to redesign what they already have? And we'll talk through some of that. So a couple things that you want to think about as a filter. Ask these tough questions when you come across an RPNOEM. The need for that RPNOEM, is it in Tolomatic's technology wheelhouse? I mean two different things there. One is, does it involve linear actuation? And then the second is it an endurance technology type of application? Is it a high duty cycle? Is it a critical motion profile? Is it a critical application? If those are true, then that's a good opportunity for us. If it is moving a dentist chair up or down, and it only happens 5 times a day, and if it doesn't happen, the dentist can just bend over a little bit more, that's not an endurance technology application. So think through those types of things and really challenge, Does the value of the Tolomatic product really apply here, and something that the customer would really want to have in their system? Is the customer willing to participate in the design process? And we'll talk a little bit more about that with project funding. But our experience has been that if you get tied up with just the purchasing agent, and if you can't get past, one engineer and sort of a arm's length relationship, this doesn't work very well. And so I show a picture here. These are two customers, the president and the chief design engineer, that flew up to Minnesota, met with us. That's our engineer Igor on the left, and really worked through the design scenario here and what they really needed for their application. We put that up against what Tolomatic could do, and I'll share with you a little bit later how this panned out in a really significant RPNOEM for the company here. Next question you want to ask is their volume, and this is a tricky one. Sometimes we like volume, right? The bigger the better sometimes. However, the bigger the project, the more eyes, ears, and competition you oftentimes attract. So we actually talk about RPNOEMs in the $20,000 to $50,000 per year range as being some of our most favorite RPNOEMs. Customers that are vested with you, you do a good bit of business with them, but they're not reaching that high level of visibility that attracts every single other competitor. When I hear numbers that are thousands of units, that's usually something that Tolomatic's not probably the right manufacturer for. Not always. Sometimes there are exceptions to that, but we're a little bit more of a custom built to order, higher technology, this endurance technology provider, as opposed to your large volume sort of competitor. So keep that in mind. What kind of volume is there? We'd certainly want it to be more than one a year or something like that to merit the time. Now the next is to define an acute pain or need. What would drive them to change from their current solution? So are they switching from a pneumatic design over to electric, and they want that additional control capability? Are they switching from hydraulics to electric because they want something in their system that eliminates that oil from being near their product and the operation? Are they looking for a more robust pneumatic rodless solution, so that maybe they've been trying it with one and they're having warranty failures in the field, and they want to upgrade to something that's has some better feature sets and will work better in their application? So try to zero in on what their pain or need is. Our challenge with all of these RPNOEM pursuits is that most of the time the solution that we offer to the customer is going to be more expensive than what they were doing originally. And so you're upselling them, and they have to then in turn upsell their customer. Now, in the world of automation and in the world we live in today, that's not as hard as it sounds, but we are asking you to go in and actually sell something typically that will replace a cheaper, less expensive component. Last thing is the project funded. This could include people, money, space. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the requirements here, but we really want the customer to be vested, right? Everyone will probably take one meeting, and they'd say, well, if you want to give me something for free, sure, I may test it out. But I will say, every time we've given away a free prototype to someone, it usually ends up underneath someone's desk because they never quite get around to mounting it to a system. So try to see if there are funds set aside. If an engineer or two or three have this on their plan as a work performance expectation from their manager, it's a project that they're tracking. Do they have a plan on where they're going to do the testing of this unit, et cetera? And then the last note at the end, if you go in and the customer says, yeah, I'm reasonably satisfied with this, but if you could drop my price 10%, I may consider it. We call that a drop-in replacement, the dreaded drop-in. And what you're typically going to end up doing is giving them a price. They're going to go back to their current supplier. That current supplier is going to be asked to match your price. And when they do that, they're going to maintain the business. So I won't say never, because we certainly do bid on some, but you really want to go in with your eyes wide open and minimize the amount of time and energy you would put into a drop-in replacement where there isn't that acute pain or need to drive them forward to do something different. So here's a chart that I put together to try and identify, what are the best targets that we should be going after. So the one at the top there is where we hit the bullseye. I give it 5 stars, my 5-star rating. This is an established company, so they existed for the last 10, 20 years. They're doing business. They have an existing machine, so they're selling this into the marketplace, have orders today, and then there's a performance or quality issue. There's a real pain. Their customers are saying, we're not happy with this, or we need that. And if you can get to that type of customer and help solve that pain, that's a 5-star opportunity. So those are the ones we want to focus on first. Next, my 4-star rated opportunity is an established company again. And they've said, you know what? We have this existing business, which is great, but we want to go into a new market. We're going to design a new machine for this new application. And we'd like you to be part of that new product development cycle. I give that 4 stars because it is an established company. So the likelihood of them finishing that new product development effort is probably pretty high. I would say they know their market space a little bit better than not like a startup type company. And if they can involve you in that product development cycle, now it will take longer, right, than perhaps the 5-star opportunity. Take longer to develop, but again, a very good opportunity. 3-star rating, an established company that has an existing machine switching from fluid power to electric. You know, this is what we want to do every day. I give it 3 stars only because sometimes pain is not felt by that machine builder. The end customer may feel some pain, but the machine builder is oftentimes trying to put themselves in a competitive place against their peer group in the marketplace. And so in these situations, we are oftentimes offered as the option. So many of these customers will say, here's my standard machine, and here's an upgrade, an option to go from fluid power to electric. And then it's just a matter of, do their customers value that or not? Great, you know, good business. We like those customers. We want to be designed in. I think the market will go that way eventually, but being the option is always a little challenging because the volume, you may or may not be there. 2-star rating, brand new company, a new machine application, a new product. And you'd say to yourself, well, that sounds great. We're in the development cycle. They want to talk with us. There's a lot of engagement. Why is that a 2-star rating? It's a 2-star rating in my mind for a couple things. One is this is the company that will take as much time out of your life as you will give them, right? So they will always take a meeting. They are asking you to do free design and development work. They're trying to launch something new into the marketplace. So anyone that's willing to help them for free is their best friend. So you got to be careful because you can get sucked into a lot of extra work here. Then number 2, you know, new companies, the success rate of new companies is relatively low, right? 10 to 20%, something like that. So the odds are against these sort of companies actually make it in the marketplace. And then a new product, a new machine, new application, this all adds levels of complexity to actually hitting that bullseye and getting something that's sustainable. Now, when this works, when you hit the right 20%, fantastic, right? We have a great opportunity and it's great business. But you can spend a lot of time spinning your wheels with these types of customers with things that don't happen. So ask yourself, would I want to buy this new product? Ask yourself, have I seen them bring customers into their facility to show this product? Do they have some active orders? Are they doing some prototyping, betas out in the field, et cetera? Try to dig a little deeper than just say, oh, this guy wants to buy an actuator. Put on your business cap. Finally, just wrap up this slide. A 1-star rated is an established company with an existing machine, price or delivery concern. This is, of course, our dreaded drop-in. So, you know, there are a number of different ways to find RPNOEMs, and they exist in just about every industry. And I'm just giving you a screenshot here from our website. On our website, you'll find our industry page. And inside, if you click on conveying or food and beverage, you'll actually be able to drill into a bunch of case studies, applications, win stories that we've done and been successful with out in the marketplace. So if you're thinking, I may not have any RPNOEMs in my market, I bet you're wrong. And this might be a good way to sort of poke around and look for different ideas that will jog something about a customer that you maybe have been driving through or past and not stopped in, or about a customer that you've been doing business with on this side of the factory, and there might be business on the other side of the factory. A short, litmus test would be anywhere you see a pneumatic or a hydraulic cylinder being used, that might be an opportunity to talk to them about electric actuation. And I'll take you through about 4 or 5 application case studies here at the end, just real brief examples. So before I get to that, I just want to talk and make sure that you're tied in. This is the hard part, because you as distributor salespeople are paid on what you sell today, right? And I'm asking you here to think about the long-term perspective of what is the long game, right? Instead of the short game, the long game. And this is a 1 to 5 year process. I've seen it happen in 6 months, and I've seen it happen in 7 years. So, and I just talked through the sales process here. You've got a lead, define what that need is with some initial customer visits. You work through an initial solution design, and then eventually they get a prototype. And now they have to find time to test that. There may be some iterative steps here. That's why I've got the arrow off to the right. You may go through a number of different changes as they tweak and adjust their design. Finally, you get a design ready, and then you try to close the sale, and they have to launch their product. And so the new product that's going out in the market, if there's any existing product that you're replacing technology, sales may take off right away. New product just getting into the marketplace, it's probably going to ramp relatively slowly. So I showed 3 images here on the right. Just, this is a tough task. You have to persevere. You have to keep after it. And what I'd like to say is you don't have to go on this alone. So we're right there with you. And we want to be a partner with you in the sales process and help invest in winning these types of businesses. So what are the watch out spots, the mud spots that you could get stuck in? So purchasing the prototype. This is a classic trap that we fall into. We get in with a customer. They say, yeah, that sounds interesting. Well, what would that cost me? And you give them a price. They say, well, I don't have a budget for that this year. If you could give it to me for free, though, I'd maybe take a look at it. That's when the warning lights should go off. If they don't have a couple $1,000s to invest in this, that means it's really not a critical opportunity and project in their own company's business model. So you need to make sure that you get not only to that one engineer, but the engineering manager, maybe even above that, and understand, is this valuable to their customers? Is this valuable to their business moving forward? And if it is, they should be able to squeeze out a couple $1,000s to help purchase a prototype. If you give them the prototype, sometimes they'll test it. Oftentimes it ends up sitting in a corner in a box that you gave it to them for. People value things for what you've charged them for it. So if it's free, it has very little true value in their mind. So that's one watch out spot. Next step is the testing of that prototype. Make sure you talk with your RPNOEM about how they intend to test. Do they have a laboratory? Are they going to set it up on their factory floor? Are they going to go to a customer site? Would they like to make use of Tolomatic's lab? What is their plan? And if they don't have a plan, then we shouldn't be selling them a prototype yet until they do have a plan. And think about, again, how are they going to execute that test? We've had some customers take an application and then speed it up to the point where they actually break the actuator because they're trying to increase their life cycle testing on it. And they move at speeds and frequencies that they would never see out in the field. So not only how they're going to test it, but what are the parameters that they're really going to put this unit through and make sure that it's not going to adversely affect the life and their expectations of the product. And then the final, mud spot here can be that first initial order, that production phase. How do you generate enough confidence in their organization that they now go launch this? How do you avoid being put out to bid at this point in the whole process? How do you continue to add enough value that you're the person that they go with? So how do we get unstuck from those 3 different scenarios? Purchasing of that prototype. Here's a couple ideas. Again, trying to avoid that free prototype discussion. A couple things we've done to tie off on that is offer, I have a standing offer to the salespeople for a 50% discount on any prototype that we sell out in the marketplace. So if you can find a true RPNOEM and you can get in front of them and convince them to buy a prototype, I will give you a 50% discount on that 1 or 2 units for that prototype application. So bring your regional sales manager into that account, show them the opportunity to work through that design cycle, engage their engineering team. That's what would qualify. Now, I ask the distributors not to mark that up significantly. This is just a message to the customer that we're asking them to invest something and we're going to invest something. We're not trying to make profit off of this prototype. We're trying to just cover costs so that we're basically equal on this endeavor. So I'd ask that you exercise restraint on this, and then the regional sales manager will be the one that makes the final determination on if it's a true RPNOEM opportunity or not for this prototype discount. The other thing we've done in some cases is offer extended terms for that trial. The guy says, well, what if it doesn't work? I'm not sure, about this. My manager, we might have the money, but it's tight. We've offered 90-day terms, buy and try, right? So you buy it, you try it. Now you have to define what the application parameters are, but here's what you're asking it to do. Here's the motion profile we've generated out of our sizing software. If you do this with our product, that's what it will work. So that oftentimes helps a customer feel a lot more confident about your solution. Now you're vested in them as well. If it doesn't work, you can return it. The tricky part about Tolomatic products for these applications is that if it does not work and they send it back to us, it goes into a boneyard and probably ends up in a scrap heap, right? But because we build a custom configure to order product, there isn't an inventory we can return it to and then send it back out again. And so these are really, we really want to make sure that we're correct, and we really want to do a prototype with them before there's a production order so that we make sure that we get it right and we don't end up with, 20 units on a pallet that now I'll have to be reworked or are not correct. So that's the purchase of the prototype. A few ideas on how to get around that block that engineering manager or purchasing guy might put in front of you. How do you get them to test that prototype? Again, this payment terms idea is interesting, I think. If you give them 60 or 90 days, now the clock starts ticking for them, right? So, okay, Mr. Customer, you buy it, I'll invoice you, you pay me in 90 days, but you have to get the testing done before that point. And or your 90-day window of return capability is open now, 60 days, 90 days, something like that. How do you get them jump started so that this jumps to the top of their list of to-dos? Everyone seems to be busy. There's always a lot going on. How do we get it going faster? Offer technical support. Say, hey, the Tolomatic sales manager is going to be in next week or in 3 weeks. Could we have that set up so they could see it in application, or they could help troubleshoot? We've flown application engineers out to visit and to help them set it up and get it up and running. So we can offer technical support out in the field. Then lastly, offer our lab. At Tolomatic, we've got a very nice engineering lab here. We've often had customers in, and we will set up as best we can a simulation, build their product, put in our lab and run that here, and then ask the customer to visit with us. We could do it via a Zoom type meeting, a WebEx of some sort, or we also oftentimes they've flown up here and then visited, and a great time for them to sit with our engineers, work through some design philosophies, and then also take a tour of the factory and gain confidence with the manufacturer they're dealing with. So I also have a standing offer to pay for that customer's visit up here. I won't pay for the distributor to come up and visit. You have to be vested and believe in this opportunity enough to jump on a plane as well. But I will pay for the customer to come up here and visit with us once we get past COVID-19, et cetera. So last bullet was a production purchase. Just have a solid understanding of, when do people buy? Do they have a busy season? Do they have a soft season? See if you can connect with their salespeople and get to excite them and get their customers excited about it. So here's a couple application wins we're going to wrap up with here to close out the session. So this is an example here on the right column. It talks about the sales story. So initially we talked with this customer back in 2012. They did buy a prototype in 2013. They liked the prototype, except they didn't like the price. So they went out in the marketplace and they tried 2 or 3 different companies. We never did get all the specifics on it. But eventually they came back in 2015 and said, you know what, because of the uniqueness of your product and what we're trying to do, we're going to go with you. And they started ramping up production in 2016. This is a medical device. It's a controlled injection into the human body, actually. And they started from scratch, a brand new company, and then eventually they were bought by one of the largest medical companies in North America here. Their challenge was they really needed very good control. They had a very tight space requirement, and you can see that up in the upper right-hand corner, how that blue actuator sort of sandwiched in there. And they needed anti-rotate on that. They needed a fair amount of force, though, for the size of the actuator. So and then this was going to stroke and needed to be exactly, precise and operate correctly every time when you have a patient waiting for you to be for their procedures. So this has worked out great. They actually have been placing blanket orders, and they feel they got a good 10-year run with this type of product. And we're also doing good out in the marketplace. So a fun example of an application win, just an indication of the timeline that might be required to win something in the medical space. This is the win that I was showing you the pictures of the engineers at Tolomatic. This is in the construction industry. They make a machining center for automated window framing. This company is interesting. They started out as a software company. Then they developed a software to estimate projects. And then they started building a machine that would take input from their software and cut metal extrusion, aluminum extrusion, to the exact right lengths, and then also drill out and route out different holes and openings inside of that extrusion, such that they could then go mount that in the building. It's the competitive actuator that they had in their initial design. They were having a lot of failures out in the field. When you're machining aluminum extrusion, there's a lot of fine metal parts flying around, and these were getting stuck inside the actuator. They were clogging up the ball screw that was in there. They had all sorts of issues. They were doing 6 and 9, and now they go up to 11 and even 13 actuators in a system. These were X, Y, and Z staged products. It's a dual linear bearing system inside there with a single ball screw in it. They had a very high precision requirement. They needed very little deflection. So they had a 6,000 RPM spindle on there that they're doing drilling and routing with. And they wanted to make sure every cut and every opening was very smooth and clean and neat. So we talked to them in 2012. They bought some of our B3 products. We were trying to use catalog product at that point. The B3 was not doing what they wanted. They had issues with it. So they went off and they tried 2 other companies. They ended up having challenges with both of those companies. So they came back to us in 2014 and then they said, we're in desperate need. We're having failures out in the field. You don't have the right product, but would you be willing to make it for us? So here's an example of a white sheet of paper. We sat down with them and they worked with us to design an actuator that would work in their application. They flew up here. We had a great discussion with them. They wanted to go as fast as possible at this point because they were in trouble mode. So we got them to pay an NRE fee. We got them to invest in some extrusion costs with us and the die, tool and die sets. And then we rushed out first prototypes in November. They placed a blanket order in December for about $1 million. And then we did the testing and first production units in January. So it's an example of, it did take long. It was a fairly long sales cycle, but at the end, because of their acute pain, things went very quickly, and they were very vested in the process. Now, in this case, we actually worked with that customer, and we offered them a discount on the first 150 units or whatever that they used to help offset their initial investment. So invest now with us in creating this opportunity and this new product, and then we'll give you some money off the first, X number of units to help repay that money while you prove out the volume you said that you would send our way. So they do about 50 machining centers per year. It's about 400 actuators. They've been a great customer, and we continue to do a lot of business with them. So a really fun example of a very successful RPNOEM. Here's another example of a custom product RPNOEM, and there are RPNOEMs that are catalogs. There's also RPNOEMs that are modified standards, and then there are some that are true customs. In this case, we had talked with this customer off and on for a number of years, never quite had the right product, and they were all very adamant that it had to fit in a specific space. They tried a competitive actuator. They had some challenges. They came back to us. They wanted to replace their 2.5-inch air cylinder. The air cylinder, this is a volumetric piston filling application. So you fill the hopper with yogurt, etc. And now you want to fill yogurt cups, or you want to fill pie filling, etc. So you want it to stroke at exactly the same amount every time. Well, with the pneumatics, they had to go out and put a manual block in place to adjust the stroke length. So if they're changing over from one product to another, they had to have one of the operators go over, make an adjustment to the system, and manually change that. They wanted to be able to push a button, have it adjust to a different stroke length automatically, hence the need for an electric actuator. They did 30 to 40 cycles a minute. So this is a high duty cycle application here. They needed 2,000 pounds of thrust because they were pushing all sorts of different types of food into this volumetric filling application. Every customer is a little bit unique, and they wanted to go fairly quickly. You know, time is money on the production line. So we sat down with them, understood what they wanted. We actually took our IMA, our integrated motor actuator design, we melded that with our ERD stainless design hygienically, and we created a new product here that was a stainless steel integrated machine actuator. So we put that into production with them. We did have some fits and starts. We did some iterative design with them, and they did some learning as well. A lot of these customers haven't dealt with electric actuators out of the gate, so this is an opportunity for us to engage with them, do some teaching. They learn, we learn, everyone gets better in the process. Ultimately, it led to the development of our new IMA stainless steel product that we launched last fall. So a lot of work went into this. It's been a 2 or 3 year effort, and then another year to launch our IMA stainless. But all of it came from an opportunity that our distributor brought to us. We sat with the customer, understood their application needs, designed a solution, and got it out in the marketplace. Another example here, this one is in Europe, actually a hard candy depositing company. So that whole assembly up in the upper right-hand corner moves up and down, and as it comes down, it deposits toffee type of candy into fillings, and then they wanted to hop up really quickly so they didn't have a tail left on this. So the whole assembly moves up and down quickly. They're using an actuator and they have some challenges. They wanted an internal anti-rotate design on this. So we were able to take our catalog product, modify it with a modification we'd done in the past to put a rod in. We've greatly improved their life of this unit out in the field. They had some service issues, they had customers complaining. We were able to go a little faster, and they needed it to be very compact. So the previous design had an external guide on it. It was getting in the way, took more space. This allowed them to make that space as small as possible. So again, we had initial discussions with them. They bought some prototypes, used them for a while, learned about the product, and then started ramping up this in their standard design. After this, we actually got with them and started talking about other applications. So then we sold them additional actuators to lift up the tray. So now we're lifting the tray and dropping the filling heads at the same time and then pulling them back apart. And then we also got designed, the new opportunity I referenced at the bottom was a stainless steel ERD that they're using on a single tray, a single filling application. So they just have 3 to 5 application injection heads at one time. So for a low production machine. And they've actually seen a high volume of demand for that machine, a lot in the cannabis industry, actually. So they have been making hay with that single actuator machine as well. I wanted to show at least one of our pneumatic products. This is a repeat part number OEM in the textile industry. They do carpet take-up, and we have a counterbalancing application here. So when you're making carpet, you've got one side of the process, and then the other side you do some stretching, and you also need to take up some of the slack of the carpet, sort of a holding area, if you will. And they wind the carpeting up and down through these different mandrels. And they have been using our cable cylinders for a number of years now in this application. So it's a very long stroke application. So it required us to put a splice kit together. It has quite a bit of load on it. They were looking at a new system design, so they put a new system in place. They didn't tell us as much about that new design as maybe they should have initially. So they had some challenges with that new design. We got on the phone with them, our engineering team. They sent some samples back to us. We were able to make some recommendations on how they were tensioning those cable cylinders and how they had them ported together. And everything has been working great since that time. So 6 units per machine, but these are big cable cylinders, and they're a high dollar value with them. So pretty exciting application for one of our legacy pneumatic products. Just wanted to show here another industry, entertainment industry, virtual 4-dimensional ride. They make the same ride over and over again. They wanted to have realism with it. So they wanted something that was very responsive and would be in the exact same position all the time. So they also needed to be pretty compact. Our rodless actuator gave them that ability to have the carriage travel the entire length of the body and not have to have the extra body sticking out of it that a rod style actuator would. They wanted quiet and smooth operation. Price is always a factor at some level. Obviously, this isn't the lowest cost actuator on the market, but for this type of application, something quite demanding with a high duty cycle requirement and something they really don't want to do a lot of maintenance on, this was the right product for them. So we sat with them, we did some competitive work with them, and we confirmed some of the misalignment they had and helped them fix some of that. But eventually, as we worked through kind of those alpha and beta unit issues, things worked very well for them. A very good customer now with the MXB product.